Howdy, y'all. Thank you for being here.
Today, we are going to dive further into the abundant history of India, something we've been doing a lot on my channel recently. If you are coming here to look at the oldest photographs of India, you will not be disappointed. Today, we're going to focus on West Bengal, specifically the city known as Calcutta. You will see the earliest images of Calcutta today, some of the only images before the city was nearly completely destroyed in 1864. In searching for the earliest images of certain regions, we tend to have an overarching narrative which appears to show European benefactors who traveled to the most historic cities around the world, photographed them for the first time, and then profited from the high demand for these images, deemed to be 19th century souvenirs. The first photographs standing as a fleeting glimpse into the magnificent architecture which once could be found across all corners of the earth. These images are what they call proof, hard evidence of the impactful yet seemingly lost architectural styles that seem to unite our ancestors. Today's images are dated from 1853 through roughly the end of the 1870s, and they all come to us courtesy of one photographer, Francis Frith. As per usual, Francis was of European descent, traveling to the east to be one of the first photographers to document a number of historic regions. However, what makes Francis Frith stand out from the crowd, and indeed what actually makes the narrative behind Francis Frith one of the most astounding of the 19th century, is he is noted as having the largest photographic collection of the 1800s, with a recorded 330,000 negatives spanning across 7,000 towns and cities in Europe. What makes this story even more endearing, we are told Francis Frith, a name which I have seldom heard mentioned in the mainstream, had a goal with his photography of photographing every major building in every major town and city across England, an endeavor he began in the year 1850. Furthermore, Francis Frith was considered a Quaker, born in 1822 in Derbyshire, England. He attended Quaker schooling at the Quaker Camp Hill, Birmingham, and by 1838, he was said to have graduated and entered into the cutlery business. According to this biography, he began to study the cutting-edge technology of photography in the early 1840s before suffering what is noted to be a nervous breakdown in 1843. By 1845, he then pursued a photography career, which culminated in his opening of a photography studio in the year 1850, followed by becoming the founding member of the Liverpool Photographic Society in the year 1853. So we have this European gentleman, Francis, and for lack of a better term, he traveled abroad to try to bank in on the souvenir craze that was developing around photography. But quickly, and something that a lot of other photographers were not able to do, Francis was able to turn this into one of the largest and the most financially stable photography studios of all time. By 1855, Francis sold all of his other businesses to focus solely on photography. Francis Frith then traveled to the Middle and Far East numerous times between 1856 and 1860, simultaneously photographing the ancient monuments of those locations before returning to England to continue his attempt to photograph every major building there. Francis Frith was one of the most successful photographers financially of the 19th century, being able to produce his thousands of photographs in a number of published books, first appearing in the mid-1800s. The catch? Frith was the publisher of his photographic collections, meaning he became the world's first photographic book publisher. As photography became more prevalent by the later 1800s, Francis then opened his postcard company. Being the world's leader in photographic production meant Francis and his postcard business thrived into the 20th century. Francis's photographic company continued operation until 1971, when the entirety of his collection, over 330,000 negatives, plus countless more undocumented images, equipment, and studios were sold to the Rothmans of Pall Mall. Today, we will look exclusively at Francis Frith's photographs of Calcutta in India. Incredibly, most of these photographs can be dated to the 1850s and the early 1860s, with a handful of the images coming later in the 1870s. What makes the architecture of Calcutta so interesting is the origins of the city, which can be traced back only to the 14th century, when the area was said to be first occupied by the Bengal Sultanate. Following centuries of occupation, another major player in the inherited history joins the game. In roughly the mid-1600s, beginning circa 1620, we have the East India Company arriving in the land that would eventually become Calcutta. In 1620, even under attacks from the local population, the East India Company opened its first factory in Calcutta. In 1644, an accident left the princess of the area badly burned. Apparently, the East India Company, according to the narrative, had a doctor by the name of Gabriel Boughton, formerly of the vessel Hopewell, who was brought in and able to heal the native princess. From here, we have a nearly centuries-long back-and-forth struggle for the land of Calcutta between the British East India Company and the leaders of the native population of Calcutta. The name Calcutta is said to stem from the 16th century leader of the region, Akbar. However, the name Calcutta can be understood to mean canal, burnt shell, or flat area. Others claim the name Calcutta is an ancient saying, meaning, "I cut that yesterday." In 1690, Job Charnock, a high-ranking agent of the East India Company, officially chose Calcutta for a British trade settlement. The native emperor at the time granted the East India Company freedom of trade, including freedom to construct factories and forts, in return for a yearly payment made to the native kingdom. By 1772, Calcutta became the capital of British India, and thus the intellectual life that was thriving in the area demanded larger and more colonial architecture. According to the narrative, this is where all the architecture we see in today's video came from. But can we trust this source? What we see is a direct result of the British European influence built on top of the ruins of earlier native structures. Calcutta underwent rapid industrial growth from the 1850s onward. The last major aspect of the narrative regarding Calcutta that I want to dive into is something that is very important, because if you do your historical research into the most important cities around the world, the most historical cities, the cities with the most architecture from the oldest time period, we will find that these sort of occurrences appear to be happening more often than should be accepted. We are told on the night of October 5th, 1864, Calcutta was hit by one of the largest cyclones in recorded history. It leveled nearly the entirety of the city and caused the passing of over 60,000 residents in a population of just under 117,000. The photographs that we have today by Francis Frith are some of the only surviving images taken before this cyclone. After the disaster of 1864 through today, the population of Calcutta has skyrocketed and currently sits at just over 1,100,000 people. Can we see Calcutta as a calculated rewriting of history, a coincidence of ancient architecture subsequently devastated by natural causes, and the benefactors of all of this being the colonizers from Europe? Is this inherited history or simply bad luck? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments regarding the history of Calcutta, regarding the photographs of Francis Frith down below. Have you ever heard of the photographer Francis Frith? Seeing as he has the largest collection of images taken in the 19th century, and seeing as most of you here probably research the 19th century and the old world just like I do, I was really shocked to find out about this collection and how it has seldom been discussed in any major news outlet ever before. I personally have never heard Francis Frith's name mentioned. So I just wanted to dive into his collection, and I felt that the oldest photographs of Calcutta were a great place to start. So let me know what you think about the images down below, what you think about the architecture found throughout Calcutta. Could this really be only colonial architecture, or can we see evidence that this architecture was built upon earlier ruins of the indigenous people of Calcutta? Again, I can't wait to hear from you. Please like the video if you enjoyed looking at these photographs. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I can't wait to talk to you on the next one.